Hey guys, welcome back to another week of the Get to Know Me series. For being here today,
I'm a jet set girl and the party goes all night long. And I fly, fly, fly around the world. And I fly, fly, fly.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It is another week of Get to Know right here from the Salvation Army Berwick page. And boy, do we have a great episode this week, a real fun one, in my opinion. Have you ever been sitting around doodling and thinking this is great, but I don't know what I can do with this, or have an idea for a story and never know how to put that into place? Well, today we're going to talk to somebody who's done just that. Video games, television, online art, even gear design. He's got his hands in so many different things, and especially a great new project called Our Heroes Rock that we're going to get into more. But let's today get to know Mr. Jonathan Davenport.
What's up, everybody? It's Andreas here at Our Heroes Rock, and we are proud to bring to you Maya.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special behind-the-scenes look at Our Heroes Rock. So what you may already know is that Our Heroes Rock is an animated short put together by myself, Andreas Hale, and Ettore Ewan. The idea is that it uses sci-fi and hip-hop to shine a spotlight on the unsung heroes of Black history. What you may not know is the story. There's still some things we're not quite ready to unveil, but one thing we are very pleased to be able to introduce you to is our protagonist, the hero of our story, and her name is Maya.
She is 11 years old, and it's been a very long time since I was 11 years old, but I think she embodies a lot of what I kind of had going on in my head with, trying to find yourself and dealing with your insecurities.
She's strong, she's brave, and she's flawed, just like each and every one of us.
On the surface, she seems very introverted and very shy and very unsure of herself, but inside she's this smart, funny, vivacious girl. And there's so much inside her, and she's afraid to show it.
I think oftentimes we come in so many different shapes and sizes, and sometimes you feel alone. You feel isolated when you don't see other people, other kids who resemble you.
And so through the course of this story, she goes on this really cool journey where she meets a lot of interesting characters who are bigger and bolder than she allows herself to be. And then she's introduced to the incredible story of our real hero, Ruby Bridges. And when she sees that story, she starts to see herself. Oh man. And when she sees herself, that opens the door for so much more.
So we hope that this is somebody that you all can relate to. Now, as we continue the journey, we're going to see more and more of Our Heroes Rock. But we are proud to bring to you one of the first creations, Maya.
And what a great story that's going to be. We're going to learn more about Maya in a bit, but let's bring on to the show right now Mr. Jonathan Davenport. John, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Captain Mike. Thank you so much for having me. What an honor.
Oh, that's so great. And I'll tell you, I said off air that I love that video introduction of Maya, and I got those chill bumps watching that. I love that. But before we get into Our Heroes Rock, I want to kind of get into you, and we're here to get to know you and your journey as, what would you classify yourself as? Just an artist, a digital artist, a storyteller? How would you classify yourself?
Oh, Captain Mike. So that's the big, right? That's the big question for me.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the thing. I've done a lot of things. I like to say I've lived many lives. I've dipped my fingers into a lot of different careers. I think, honestly, just I'm a storyteller and a creator. All these other things are mediums. that they allow you to tell these stories and to present characters to people and to introduce them to ideas and let them see a part of themselves and let them recognize that they're stronger than they think they are. They're smarter than they think they are. And they can do anything they set their mind to. And it's all through the power of like these, if it's a picture, it's a video game, if it's a character design for a wrestler or something, that's sort of the underlying message that I try to put into everything because uh, a lot of people actually helped me along and it took a long time for me to learn that. And I don't want people to have to wait to self-realize as long as I did. So I want people to get on their path early.
Absolutely, and you have done some incredible work. And for those that aren't aware, John has worked with Disney. He has worked on video games. He's worked with wrestlers, as we saw Big E there in there, but designing amazing gear that my son desperately wants to be turned into pajamas. But
That's a great idea, man.
I don't know why they haven't done that yet. That's money rating for them.
Literally going to text E after this and tell him that because he gets very excited about new ideas and concepts and ways to connect with people.
Yeah,
that's killer, man. That's
I'm
a killer
telling
idea.
you, I had the Hulk Hogan in the 80s and I would do this pose. My son would be swiveling with Big E wearing some of that stuff any day. So, but you've like you said, you're a storyteller, but you use the medium of art and design. So I got to ask, how did you get started? How did you find that you had this passion of art and storytelling?
Wow. Man, I got to say, it started very, very early. I think that some people sort of find their path later in life and find their passions just through experimenting and meeting new people and trying new things. For me, I kind of knew very early on. I've just always been a doodler, always been a drawer, always been a sketcher. I'd started like a lot of artists just by tracing and trying to learn these lines and how to connect them through just other drawings that you see, things that inspire you. But I mean, man, when I was, oh boy, I guess I was in kindergarten and I was making comic books for my mom, like on this like ridiculous, like large, you remember the old dot matrix printer paper?
Yeah. It was like, it just kept going. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I would just draw stories and staple them together and go, what do you think? And it's like, oh, that's a cute story for you for in kindergarten. But I mean, I did that straight through junior college. Like I remember specifically being in like, it was like my first year at JC and and I was still like, I'd taken a comic idea that started as a joke for me. And, as my storytelling sensibilities matured, I started like, it's like you reboot an old story. I was
absolutely.
like, I really like, there's cool parts about this story. So I started, plussing it up. And the art got better and the storytelling got better. And then like I would literally keep myself to a schedule and like my mom is my only audience. So I'm like, Mom, look, I finally finished that story arc. And she's like, I don't know what you're doing, but thank you. It's very, very cute.
You wouldn't exactly get, unswayed feedback on that audience.
You wouldn't think so. Well, you never know people's backgrounds, like different parents have different priorities, so they might be more of the, put that aside, focus on something that'll pay off. But I was fortunate enough in that my mom sort of believed in this whole passion of mine from a very young age. So
that's really great. I mean, you do, there'll be kids here watching that don't necessarily have that, but they may get it from a teacher. They may get it from a pastor. They may get it from even somebody in the neighborhood who would say, oh, baby, that looks good. Keep doing what you're doing. And
Mr. Rogers always says, look for helpers, right?
Absolutely. That's one of my favorite lines. So you got into doodling, as you will, for 18 years into college. What was the transition then into like, I can actually make money doing this? I can actually get into this as a career?
Well, it was not smooth, Captain Mike. It was not a smooth transition at all. Once I graduated high school, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. Like this thing that I'm doing now is kind of the only thing I'm qualified to do. It's kind of the only thing I'm good at. But that doesn't help you when you're, just graduating. You just feel like directionless. You feel a little lost. And that's why I ended up going. I knew I wanted to go to college because it's kind of had been a thing in the back of my head. Like I always wanted to do that. It seemed like the right thing to do. It seemed like a cool thing. It's not for everybody, but for me it was good. And I took those extra 2 years at a local junior college just because I didn't know what direction to go in. I had these aspirations. I wanted to make movies, Mike. That was my thing. I wanted to be a writer and director. And then I learned, like, it's common knowledge now, but I didn't know there was such a thing as film school. I had no idea. So I found out that there was a college nearby, so I wouldn't have to move too far away, and they had a film program. I went there, and that's where I learned about storyboarding, which was kind of cool because it was it positioned me perfectly to use my artistic skills and my storytelling passion and my aspirations to be a cinematic storyteller.
Could you briefly kind of explain what storyboarding is, maybe for those that don't know?
Oh man, I'd love to. Absolutely. Yeah. So basically you draw the story. So every movie, whether it's like a small indie movie or those big, huge MCU, like Marvel action extravaganzas, making movies is very expensive to make. So if you show up, you got to think about how many people are working on it. There's like the people you always think about, the director, writer, the cinematographer, things like that. But there's so many members of the crew and so many things that have to happen. And if you just show up on the day and plan to start shooting without a plan, you're going to waste a lot of money and a lot of time.
Right.
So a great solution is to hire someone like me, a storyboard artist. I work with the writer and the director, and we come up with shots and we design these sequences together. And it's basically just a series of drawings. It's like, imagine a comic book of a movie. And that's kind of, I draw in a comic book style anyway. So a lot of directors enjoy working with me because they feel, we're all kids. And they're like every director I've worked with in the last year has been like, oh man, this should be a comic. And I'm like, right? So that's what the storyboards are. So then my job is done once all the sequences have been drawn out. And then it's like, I pass it on to them and then I move on to another job, but then they go and then they shoot their movie. And sometimes if I'm lucky, they'll send me photographs from the set of like, hey, here's us looking at your drawings and the actors trying to imitate your drawings.
So cool. That's so cool.
You draw the story. And so I learned about that. I practiced at it. I started getting a little bit better. I found some local jobs, just for commercials and things to kind of get my foot in the door. Those early efforts were really bad, but I was learning. That's okay. You're learning.
That's right.
And eventually I started getting hired on bigger and bigger jobs. And the next step was like doing commercials instead of for local companies like, car dealerships and things like that. Then I got one for what's the bouquets of fruit they send?
Oh yeah,
what is that?
Edible arrangements. Edible arrangements. Yeah,
that was my first big gig.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did some edible arrangements commercials, and then I got some Disney commercials, and then I got to do some short films, and then eventually worked my way up to feature films and television, which is what I'm doing now.
Which is, and everybody, I'm so glad you pointed that out because, everybody sees the shiny, end results.
Sure.
And, a few weeks back, we had Matt Camp from WWE on here. And he was talking about, so many people in the background that you have no idea. And when you look at the credits of a movie or something, they can just, get lost in the shuffle. But right there, is Jonathan Davenport as a main component. Yeah, I've seen the photos. I know. I've seen the name in there. But you talk about, you were drawing and doodling into the comic style, and then you really kind of leaned into that without even realizing it. How do you feel like not just your school education, but your life experiences really helped you as you transitioned into making this storytelling medium your career?
The life experience, half of it is something that I think a lot of people discount.
Yeah.
They think about like education and it's who you know and whatever. But all these projects, all these artistic and creative endeavors are done by people just like you know, and it's very easy to feel alone and feel like you're the only one going through what you're going through. But you've got to realize that no matter how they come off, everybody at their core is sort of the same. We all started out a little insecure. We all started out a little, and there's that whole saying, you've heard fake it till you make it. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
There's so many wrestlers that I talk to, and these are like professionals that are on TV every week, like world famous people and directors and like a couple of movie stars. I don't get to talk to too many, but occasionally. And everybody's got this thing, this imposter syndrome. Should I explain that? Does everybody know what that is?
Well, just give us a little bit of a snippet of that. Yeah.
Sure. It's just a little bit of feeling like you're an imposter, like you're a fake. Whatever it is that you are doing, you're kind of like very nervous that people.
I think the kids are calling it. They're saying that we're sus now.
They think you're sus, right?
That you're sus.
Yes. You are sussy. And you're waiting to be found out. But the fact is that everyone is sort of learning as we go. And so when you talk about life experience, it's really easy to get down on yourself when you don't meet an expectation that you've set, or you feel like you've fallen short in some way, or you feel like you've messed up in a way that can never be fixed and no one's ever going to forgive me. And you gotta please believe me and keep in mind that is in your head.
Absolutely.
That is in your head, and you can overcome those things. And every time you fall, it's a fantastic opportunity to learn, because then
absolutely
stand back up and you don't fall that same way again. And it's like, I don't know, no one watches Star Trek here. I'm sure you guys aren't Trekkies, but it's like the Borg, right?
My wife is all over this right now.
Every time you hit the Borg with a phaser, they assimilate, they adapt. You know, they're like, I know what frequency that is, and then they get that, and you can't hit them with that anymore. And that's the way. That's a great way to think about, if you're a sci-fi nerd. That's a great way to think about turning your life experiences into strengths.
Right. Yeah. It's been told many times before, and I've learned this, even doesn't matter the vocation you have as a minister. My first 3 years as a minister, I was faking it all the time. I knew what the Lord wanted me to say, but it wasn't here as much as it was here. Sometimes it was coming out, but you do. And you learn though from your failures. That's so true. And not just your own. I think you would agree in your walk, but you keep your eyes open to see not just those that achieve and how they got there, but look at what went wrong and learn from others' mistakes as well. And leaning
as much as you can, try to avoid it yourself if you
can. Exactly. And and those are, I love the word that you use, opportunities. They're opportunities to learn, opportunities to grow. And so you have, really, like we said, you man of many lives and many talents. And we were actually going through some stuff from your website and going some of your projects. And my kids were like,
I apologize. It's a lot of stuff.
No, he's like, we're like, oh, he did that. He worked on that. It was so great, So can I ask, I got to ask, well, what gives you energy? For me, this is one of the things that gives me energy back, that I really love, interviewing, learning, meeting people like you and learning their story. So of all the things you've kind of done in video games and movies and even art and everything, what is kind of not your favorite, but what is your looking going, I could really snap into that?
Okay. So I have a bit of a complicated answer for that, but
that's what we're here for.
So there was a period when I was working. It was a decent period. It was many years, maybe 10 years, when I was working in video game development. Mm-hmm. And I worked in a level of game dev that doesn't really exist anymore. There's up here, there's your AAA games, all the games that you're going to name right now, as your favorite games.
Right.
And then there's down here, there's the microtransaction games, the apps and things like that. Mm-hmm. There used to be a mid-level where we'd have really decent budgets, $1 million, $500,000, whatever, something like that, right? Which sounds like a lot, but when it's a big team,
absolutely, it goes on.
And we worked in the family genre. So what? It wasn't there weren't any guns in our games. we had to be very creative, and we got a lot of licenses to work with. So I started as a concept artist. I did storyboarding for cutscenes, and then I eventually transitioned to a game writer. And we would get licenses for, meaning the permission to make a game about, all kinds of properties from Disney and Nickelodeon. I wrote Little Mermaid games and Proud Family games, and like so many, so many. There's a ton.
Right.
There's a ton of properties, and a lot of times there were properties or characters that I had no interest in at all. In fact, one of my
Not a big Ariel fan?
here's the trick. Here's the trick. This is the whole point of my story. I'll bring up cheerleading because that was like probably the farthest from my interests at the time. I got the opportunity to write a cheerleading game from the ground up, which was a big deal. The idea of being able to create something, like creating characters and a storyline, and the game pitch got greenlit immediately. It was for the Nintendo Wii.
Right.
And it got greenlit immediately, very, very fast. I heard like one of the fastest ever green lights at the time, but whatever. And they wanted to make two. They wanted to do that and a sequel. So it was a really big opportunity, and it would have been foolish of me to turn it down because I was like, yeah, I don't like cheerleading. I learned that you have to find the fun.
Mhm.
You know, if there's something that is incredibly popular, even though it's not in your lane, there's probably something there. There's something that it's resonating with people. There's something that people like. And if you can strengthen that muscle, if you can work out the muscle of, it's almost empathy, it's getting in someone's shoes, it's looking at something objectively and going, what is cool about this? I did a deep dive into cheerleading. I watched documentaries. I bought all the Bring It On movies. I watched all of them. I interviewed cheerleaders. I did everything I could, and I found it, and I was like, this is awesome. Like this is athletics, this is choreography, this is costume design, it's teamwork. There's so much on the line. There's so much potential glory, and potential heartbreak. It's amazing, and it's stuff I would have missed out on completely if I had been a genre snob. If I had said like I'm not into that. So to answer your question, like what gets me most excited, I kind of have moved beyond that in a way where I've worked at it. I've developed the muscle. I can get excited about anything as long as there's a real human connection, a real human story, and something to grab onto. I don't even have a favorite thing anymore. I'll tell you my least favorite thing is doing commercials because there's a lot of times no soul in it. It's just selling a product, So it's hard to get excited about that unless you're working with a great director who's got a great sense of humor and they're like, I want to tell this story. It's very brief. We'll have some touching moments. That's really fun. But if it's just like, here's a credit union commercial, here's a card and interest rates, and it's like, that doesn't connect with me. I'll still do a good job, but it doesn't get me excited.
But it's going to be hard for anybody in those situations. But finding the fun, I love that, and there really is. A lot of us kind of in our everyday life, so we can kind of feel like we're trapped sometimes, or that we're stuck at where we're at. But we kind of learned that as a kid. Hey, you give me 2 rocks and a stick, and I'm gonna make something fun out of it. There. So finding the fun, and so one thing I'm really excited about as we're kind of really very quickly coming towards the end of this interview is that. Our Heroes Rock. This is such a great project that first time I saw it, and I know you're going to kind of lean into. I got Saturday morning feels, and started singing "I'm Just a Bill," but but immediately my wife and I just loved it and started showing our kids. And this was months ago when the announcements were made. Yes, and so we're just very excited about the project. So for those unaware, it's still in production. We know, and there's still a campaign. Could you tell us about Our Heroes Rock?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm very excited to. Thank you. So Our Heroes Rock, kind of the short log line or the short pitch of it is that it's right now it's just a short. It's an animated short that uses sci-fi and hip hop to shine a spotlight on the unsung heroes of Black history. Now that's an easy way to put it succinctly, but essentially. There are a lot of aspects of our just shared history as people that we just don't know about, So we're right now focusing on Black history because I'll tell you this, just personally, in my school and in my education, there was a lot of stuff that I just never learned about. And it's
Yeah.
not necessarily all dark things either. Like it's just heroic moments and inspirational stories, like stories of invention and creativity and cleverness and bravery that just kind of were glossed over, you know? And we thought, man, this is a great opportunity for us to take some of the things that we all love, because we're all the members of the core team are sort of grown up babies. We're a little bit of man
Ain't nothing
children,
wrong with
right?
that. Yeah, 40-year-old
Yeah,
kids right here.
exactly. So we're taking all the things that we love and we're seeing if we can inject some interest into an area that I think has kind of been a little underserved.
Mhm.
And we have aspirations of having this maybe turn into a series, which would be really nice, and then growing the brand and like covering, like moving beyond just Black history. We could do Latin, we could do women, we could do all kinds of things. But essentially, it's just trying to see how exciting and interesting and important you can make these stories feel using stuff that we all love anyway.
Yeah, and you are right. A lot of it hasn't been touched on. A lot of people don't know. I know in the last few years, with everything that's happening, I found myself. I grew up in a mainly minority neighborhood, and there was tons that I didn't know that I was learning, and this is a great way to present that in a fun way. The family can get together, and I got to tell you what I love, and this is my little sidebar, is
Yes,
every time I
please.
watch the video about Maya. My daughter's 12 and she is going, oh, and so we know, she's learning about herself, and we're in a society that's so quick to point out imperfections, and
Yes.
we're in a society that is based upon likes and dislikes on social media, and Maya isn't perfect, but she's learning. And not only is she learning about herself, she's learning about the world around her and how she fits into that world. And that's so important. And I just interviewed someone, and it'll aired by this point, our divisional commanders in the Salvation Army, my bosses, and they said, don't read your own press clippings. Don't look at your own comment section, if you will.
That's good.
And so Maya really resonates to me, that, and so why would you why did the three of you decide Maya needs to be not perfect?
Here's what we want to avoid. We want to avoid stories that people cannot relate to.
Yes.
If there's a character who is too perfect, who is already fully formed, who already is an expert at everything, and this is something you see in movies all the time now, all the time. There's a lot of arguments online between the geek community about certain characters just not having any flaws. Um, who cares?
Yeah.
I can't relate to that. I mean, it's maybe cool from an action standpoint, like, oh, that character's great. But I don't learn anything from that. I don't see myself in that character. I don't get a lot from it. It's not nourishing to me. And I wanted there to be a vulnerability there, and truth there, something real. A lot of a lot of the characteristics in Maya are based on observations I've made with my own daughter, who is also 12. And she's going through that time in life when, like, you start seeing yourself differently.
Mhm.
You start seeing yourself sort of the way you think other
Right.
people are seeing you, even though there's no possible way you could.
Right.
But you don't know that yet because your
Or you're
brain's not
looking for
quite
the wrong
developed.
people to look at you.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I remember being that age, and like life was rough for me. Like, I'm an emotional guy, I'm a very sensitive dude, and that has not changed over the years.
Right.
So it's very easy for me to get down or depressed or emotional. So it's like sort of important for me to show people that we're all there at some point and on some level. And it honestly, just to tie this up nicely, it kind of comes back to the Mr. Rogers thing. Like, if you look around, there's always going to be somebody there who's got your back, whether it's your mom, your dad, your teacher, anyone. Like, there are people there who have your best interest at heart. Find those people, ask for help, take their advice, learn, grow.
Absolutely. And, I just finished one of my classes in college where my wife and I are attending, and about mentorship. And you guys are not only hitting on kind of that, but also there's lessons to be learned from historical mentors, and so many, we stand on the shoulders of giants, and so it's so great to learn from these amazing people, that the Ruby Bridges, the John Lewises that went before, and really laid the groundwork. So I thank you for bringing that to the table for this generation. Well, John, we're going quick. I want to hit you with two quick things. One, such a fun. I hear video games, we hear TV shows. So, what was something that happened where you went, and we didn't even hit on, you are the main designer for the New Day's gear, which is kind of how we came to know you, and amazing stuff. What's one thing that happened that was just like, this is really cool, I can't believe this is happening?
Oh boy, I've had a few like that, but I have to say, just since you brought up the wrestling, like the guys from the New Day are awesome. They're awesome, and they have changed my life and my outlook in so many ways. Just, there's the whole thing about their in-ring personas with the positivity.
Mm-hmm.
That's real,
right?
Like that's what they're really like. And I'm not saying they don't have ups and downs like everybody else, but man, it's about lenses. You ever thought about that?
Yes.
Like,
oh yeah.
Everything is colored by the lens that you're looking at the world through.
Right.
So we're all looking at the same world and the same events or whatever. But if you choose to look at it through a lens of positivity and connectivity, creativity, your outlook is brighter.
Mm-hmm.
You have hope and you're filled with inspiration, And the guys kind of taught me that. And they are very creative dudes, and they always challenge me. I think it's a game. They haven't said this. I think that they have a game going where they're like, what can we throw him to see what he can do? So I don't know if you're familiar with the painter Basquiat.
Mm-hmm.
But this
was Mania, right?
Yes, they threw that at me.
Yes.
And they're like, hey, here's a neo-impressionist painter. Make that into wrestling clothes. Make that into tights. And I was like, what? I had no idea what to do. I do the thing I always do with them, and I go, yeah, absolutely. And then I hang up and panic.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then you take, what's the saying? How do you eat an elephant? Like
one bite at a time.
Yeah. So I just pulled out a bunch of Basquiat paintings online and analyzed them and looked for patterns and looked for, everyone's got a language. Everyone's got a visual language. All artists do. You just have to decipher it. So I tried to find that. I tried to emulate that and shine it through a New Day lens, and I made it into this gear. And I didn't know if it was great or not. I did the job. So I felt good about that.
Right. And
that ended up being the gear, WrestleMania 35, that Kofi, during the height of Kofi Mania, won the title in. Yeah. And that is a moment in wrestling history that will never, ever be erased.
Huge moment, yeah.
It's a picture of him on the shoulders of his brothers, and he's got the belt in one hand. I still remember he brought his kids out. You remember that?
Yeah.
And during that big moment with everybody watching, I was on TV. I was like, tears running down my eyes. I was like, this is so great. And during this whole thing, he's wearing my designs.
Right.
And that to me was like a really, really impactful moment. I was like, wow, what I'm doing isn't always great. Sometimes some swing better than others. Sometimes you swing, sometimes you miss. But that was a moment where everything fired exactly correctly. It was the perfect idea with the perfect moment and the perfect execution of the gear. Because I don't sew it, I just design it. The wizards at Main Event Gear put that together. Right. And it was awesome. It was awesome.
And I'll full transparency, I'm not a huge art guy. And when that gear hit, and this is a couple of years ago, so it's long before we have ever communicated.
Yeah.
I went and looked into Basquiat, and I looked into some of his art and his story and things of that, and so it was, I can never say his name correctly, but I looked, yeah, but it made me look into it, and that was such a very cool moment, and we have that figure in our house,
Oh, that's so cool!
yeah.
Excellent.
Yes, we got a bunch of
Oh,
your gear on figures. My son, it's one of his favorite toys to play with, and that
how
trophy.
great
So,
is that?
yeah, it's
Thank you
so
for
cool.
telling me that, man. That warms my heart, and that's
It's
awesome.
so
Thank you.
good. Well, last question as
Yes.
we wrap this up. I ask all my guests, and it just happens to be a coincidence with Maya being as one of our talks.
I've heard of coincidences.
Yes, but they've never happened.
I've never seen it.
Let's see how I set that up. So I ask every guest, if 12-year-old John,
Hmm.
or I'm sorry, if you now could go back and talk to 12-year-old John, what would you say to him?
Oh man, I know what I was doing at 12. It's very similar to what I'm doing now. I'm sitting at a desk, a drafting table. I remember it had a little crank in it where you could lift the table up and draw at an angle. Man, I would just tell him, listen, man, trust that you're getting better and that you're good at this. You're filled with doubt. You don't believe in yourself. And when people laugh or when people say no, you take that to heart, but you're not taking any of this other stuff to heart. When people say it's good or I love it or you're good at this or whatever, listen to that too. You know, like I would have gone a lot farther, a lot faster if I had believed in myself from an earlier age. So I would love to erase that kid's doubts, bolster him up, and say, man, believe in yourself. There's no limit to how far you can go if you just keep pushing and keep asking and keep learning and getting better.
Absolutely, and I'll tell you, you have brought tons of joy into my family's house, and we need some we didn't even know about. As the kids that they've played the Marvel Playmation, and
Someone's played Playmation?
we have a tote full of them in our house.
Get out of here! That's incredible!
Yes.
Oh, I wish we had more time. That's a whole
Yeah,
story,
yeah.
man.
And I was gonna say, so I think this has been so well. Maybe we'll have you come back, down the road and
You
do
call,
some more
man. You let me know.
stories.
I'll definitely come back. This is
I
fun.
think it'd be great. So, well, everybody, thank you guys for tuning in, and make sure that you look for the question with the answer for the prize this week. And as always, just make sure that you share this and subscribe. And we're so thankful that you're here. Thank you, John. We appreciate you. And
Thank
until
you.
next time, we'll talk to you later. Bye, guys.